In the timeless wisdom of Epictetus, the ancient Stoic sage imparts a profound truth: there are forces within our control, and those beyond it. Our thoughts, desires, and deeds spring forth from the wellspring of our own volition, but the bodies, riches, reputations, and authorities of others remain untamed, ungoverned by our singular will. To live a life unburdened by excessive passions and mental disturbances, we must exert our energies solely on that which we can steer, surrendering all that lies beyond the horizons of our influence. For what plagues humanity more than the insidious opinions and judgments of others? No matter our strivings, the winds of approval and condemnation are all but inevitable. Yet Epictetus reveals the path to soar above these squalls. Unperturbed, understand that insults and slights hold no inherent venom. The injury arises solely from how we receive them. When maligning words or deeds encroach, reflect that your own judgment first lends them sting. With patience and distance, such offenses become devoid of power. React with scorn or anger and you grant the offender's wish. But answer with stoic resilience, remaining unmoved, and the insult crumbles, its sender exposed as the true loser. For worth is measured not by provocations endured, but by the capacity to bear them, with dignity that defangs all vain attempts at subjugation. In this timeless video, we extract the golden insights from Epictetus' legendary manual for living. To attain an unshakable inner citadel, a soul impervious, where reckless opinions dare not trespass. Across 7 profound teachings, you shall learn to navigate insult's choppy waters, with a resilient allegiance to your highest philosophic ideals. The kingdom of mastery over self awaits those daring enough to claim it. 1. Fear and dishonor, the only approval that matters. Cast out all trepidation about living in supposed dishonor, or being regarded as a nobody, for such fears are illusory chains forged by the mind's own devices. If a perceived lack of honor or status depended solely on others' estimations, they would then hold the power to make us fundamentally unhappy. And that is simply not the case, nor can anyone truly force us to participate in any unworthy pursuit against our highest virtues. Understand that the pursuit of power, recognition, or invitation into certain societal circles is their muddled pursuit, not yours. Why should the lack of such hollow attainments constitute any dishonor to your being? You are somebody anywhere by mere fact of personhood. The immutable worth you wield resides solely in those realms under your own custody and intent. How many times have you compromised your truest self and contrived your deepest values merely to curry favor or approval in someone else's eyes? Especially in this age of social media's incessant siren call for virtual validation, do we not daily witness bright souls poisoning their authenticity? On these platforms, fickle vinegars, we must firmly ask ourselves, is it worth defiling our most sacred essence, merely to garner a transient dopamine wisp of other approval? Is it truly wise to surrender the hallowed well-being of our very minds to the turbulent winds of anonymous opinions and judgments? The answer must be an inviolable no. If one day you are caught persisting in a harmless action that somehow arouses others' mockery or marginalization, must you lend their scorn any credence whatsoever? Should the mere perception of lost popularity among certain crowds vault you into severe inner discord? Of course not, for any happiness premised on such benchmarks is no happiness at all, but a prison of constant tension. To alter your core being and way of relating to life solely, to avoid forfeiting elusive status, is to exist in perpetual inner-outer disconnect. True satisfaction cannot be contingent upon the shifting praise, ridicule of others, for that buoy's moorings are ever fleeting. To live this way is to surrender your happiness into outward hands, foundationless and rife for turbulence. 2. Insults and offense, the truest invincibility. When insult and offense come hurling your way, Epictetus instructs us to pause and reflect. The true injury lies not in the provocation itself, but in how we choose to receive it. The one who insults merely casts a flimsy line, awaiting our reactions to imbue it with power. Understand that slights and disparagements are mere phantoms, until substantiated by our own perceptions and judgments. It is our opinion that first lends them potency to cause inner unrest. Once we inject tranquility into the situation through the mere refusal to be unduly provoked, such offenses become impotent wisps scattering in the wind. React with scorn or anger, and you grant the offender's fleeting wish. But answer with stoic equanimity, resolute and unmoved, and suddenly the insult implodes its sender, exposed as the actual loser vainly casting stones from a dilapidated fortress. For a person's immutable worth is measured not by the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune they endure, but by their capacity to bear them with preternatural dignity, that utterly defangs all such vain provocations. When cruel opinions or belittling words encroach, force yourself to weigh the options. Do I wish to surrender my unconquerable essence to that which I cannot govern? Or will I fortify my gaze solely on the realms that are mine to rule through sheer, unflappable discipline of mind? The next time you feel the white-hot lash of insult scorching your pride, pause. Reflect that this soul's ancient provocations are merely cosmic dandruff, flaking off existence's shoulder, rubbish unworthy of engaging your essential grandeur. View them with removed transcendence, allowing the ephemeral to dissolve in its own vacuum while you remain rooted in your immortal equilibrium. For when we learn to navigate insult's choppy waters with a resilient allegiance to our highest philosophic ideals, we attain a soul-level satisfaction that elevates us to the lofty air of the spiritually invincible. No mere opinions from imprisoned beings can perturb that elevated domain. You become invulnerable bastion where cruel judgments of the haunted masses dare not trespass. 3. Steadfast purposes, double victory. Of course, in pursuing the Stoic path and excellence in any arena, ridicule and societal friction are inevitable pit stops. Epictetus reminds us that if we have resolved to understand true philosophy and wisdom, we must be prepared from the outset to endure jeers from the ignorant crowd, to hear the multitudes mock. Look, he fancies himself a philosopher now, or sneer in scorn. And just where does this arrogant attitude come from? When the dissenters dissent, make sure you do not adopt hubristic airs in return. Stick to the things that are authentically beneficial to your greater trajectory. For remember, if you cling steadfastly to your noble position and persist along the high road, those very same mockers will eventually come to admire and revere you once their own myopia clears. However, if you falter and are persuaded to abandon your purposes, solely to appease their scorn and resistance, you will be subjected to double derision. First, you become a source of ridicule for lacking the strength to follow through on the path you knew to be correct and highest. Second, you arouse even deeper scorn for forsaking your own judgment and highest interests simply to conform to the blind pressures of others' overriding opinions and resistance. What could be more contemptible than abandoning our true talents, callings and purposes solely out of an eagerness to avoid friction with the uncomprehending societal dogmas, clenching our teeth for a brief spell to march unperturbed through the passing squalls of mockery and doubt is a laughably modest price to pay for the profound privilege of living in full accordance with our own inner nature and highest ideals. Allow Epictetus' wisdom to resound. I will not allow the paltry opinions of others to override my own integrity, nor to dictate what is possible for me to accomplish in this life. In every decision going forward, remain grounded in your truest priorities and core virtues. Consider the actual reasoning behind the choices you make. Do they stem from a crippling eagerness to appease societal expectations and mass opinion? Or from fidelity to that sacred inner lodestar that alone can sponsor your path to a life well lived? Stay unswayed by temporal suasions when you know the righteous, eternal course to chart. Let derision be prism through which your resolute excellence shines all the brighter. For in the end, the only approval that bears cosmic weight is your own. Master that, and you shall taste triumph's double-fold nectar, walking your truth while dissolving the petty ridicule and opinions of those shackled souls you leave trailing behind. 4. Repressing your actions, the sovereign's remit. When you take an action that aligns with your highest judgment and virtuous intent, Never be ashamed or cowed if perceived through distortive external lenses. For if your conduct does not uphold the justness you profess, then by all means, abandon that misguided course. However, if you operate from a place of unwavering rectitude, why tremble at the prospect of being misjudged by those lacking the context or capacity to grasp the transcendent Tao behind your deeds? As mentioned, all too often we fall into the toxic snare of allowing our happiness and self-worth to become contingent upon cycling tides of social media popularity or institutional validation. Thus warped, we find ourselves contorting into psychological vagabonds, ceasing to act in accordance with our deepest values and truth simply because the mass minds have misconstrued the upright actions animating our existence. At this juncture, we are no longer truly living for ourselves and our highest allegiance, but sacrificing sovereignty on the profane altars of other opinion. We must germinate the willingness to query whether persisting in such an inauthentic, uncentered way of being is truly worth the anguish and spiritual erosion it engenders. For the decision to remain anchored as captain of your own ship, unswayed by ignorant busybodies passing squalls of misjudgment, lies solely with you, rather than continually seeking external affirmation while simmering in constant apprehension over reputational optics. The Stoic path encourages inner alignment, rooting into your most sublime self-comprehension, and acting from those anchored values, regardless of perception. We were not bestowed this singular homestead of consciousness to fritter it away in fearful deference to mistaken judgments. Our sacred charge is to uphold our highest truth, witnessed through the clarifying lens of our studious heart. 5. Would you welcome a stranger into your mind's sanctuary? If a stranger attempted to violate the sanctum of your physical home, you would undoubtedly meet such a transgression with outrage. Yet when it comes to the supremely sacrosanct temple of your mind, how quickly you forfeit governance by allowing the insults and negativity of any passer-by to take up unforced residence there. Just as you would fiercely guard the domestic boundaries of your personal dwelling, so must you erect inviolable ramparts around the inner sanctum that houses your consciousness, your seat of perception and processing. To internalize an insult or offense is to willingly welcome a disfigured stranger's effigy into the holy chambers of your psyche, granting it domicile to linger indefinitely. Why then, Epictetus provokes, do we so blithely allow these spoiled, noisome guests to infiltrate our minds' inviolable territories daily? When we would never permit such debased, unknown entities to enter and potentially mar our physical abodes. Our minds represent the apex of our ownings, the one immutable piece of metaphysical real estate that is ours alone to govern. All else can be dissolved or transmuted by life's vicissitudes, but the still point of consciousness remains an eternal blur. To ignore or subjugate its supreme primacy is to sell your existential stake cheaply and grant possession of the very ground you stand upon. If you henceforth find yourself lapsing into anger, bitterness, grievance toward another, recognize that you are allowing a menacing stranger to boldly traipse through your mind unannounced and unobstructed, simply through the refusal to process insults as injurious, to decline transporting them into your psyche. You maintain impeccable ownership and mastery of your estate, and the serenity and sense of reclaimed domain such discrimination sponsors will propel your experience of life to newfound vistas of grandeur and self-possession. Over time, as we accumulate these incremental reps of discipline and discernment, even in volatile territories of familial friction or social causticity, we assemble the tensile psychology to uphold the integrity and impenetrability of our supreme inner sanctum at all times, regardless of context. No outside force can infiltrate those crystalline boundaries unless we forfeit custody and grant trespassing rights. Stand unswayed sovereign over all you ultimately survey. Your mind's primordial continent has no foreign allegiances, its soil answerable only to your highest calibrations of sovereign intent. 6. If someone speaks ill, lenses upon lenses. If another harms you through foul action or speech, reflect that this person is merely operating based on what appears right and true from their limited vantage point. It is not possible for them to act in perfect accordance with your paradigm, for that is not their unique lookout upon the play of existence. Therefore, if they judge you from a distorted stance rooted in paltry or faulty perspective, they alone are the ones perverted by such delusions, not you, rooted in your heart's citadel. Patiently tolerate any insults that may arise, and on each such instance calmly intone to yourself, well, that's how it appears to them from where they're standing. You see, Epictetus instructs us to analyze the underlying impetus and context from which the insult rises, for we cannot rationally expect any soul to act in perfect concert with our own rendering of truth and virtue. To cling to such provincial notions is to anchor ourselves in naivety at best, and at worst, the arrogance of projecting our personal paradigms as universal gospel. Rather, we must remain open to the multiplicitous perspectives comprising this human tapestry. At the macro level, there exist as many distinct worldviews as there are beings apprehending and co-creating realities. Grand diorama. Zooming in further, at the individual level, each of us embodies as many constituent selves as there are lived moments across our existential timeline. So, if someone aims their second-hand judgments toward the ersatz impression they harbor about you, recognize that you alone abide in the preternatural vantage of your deepest self-knowing. You, and you alone, are the ultimate arbiter and seer of the subtle contexts, motivations, and indelible strands weaving your life's encrypted philosophy. Thus, when uninitiated onlookers hurl their blind rebukes and accusations, have the presence to query, have I truly erred in my actions here? If not, then this detractor is simply seeing things through their own muddled lens, lacking clarity on my rationale, my depth of integrity. At this recognition, you can settle back into the comfort of your impeccable self-referential stance, for if you have acted in accordance with your highest virtues and comprehended the full dimensionality of intent fueling your conduct, then you are in the supremely enviable position of being the sole occupant who understands the brimming nuances and calibrations comprising the truth of your holistic essence. All others are mere dabblers in a reality far too vast for their presuppositions and stumbling judgments to hold accurate purchase over your sacred becoming. As Epictetus sagely espoused, when faced with errant insult, hold the simple, disarming counter-thought. So it appeared to them, not as a recused shrug of dismissal, but as a grounded, unshakable recentering in the sovereign authenticity and vision fortifying your path away, lit by no flame but the immortal spark abiding at your core. 7. No one can hurt you unless you permit it. This practice of insulating your equanimity extends beyond just strangers. It applies equally to those closest home environs of family, friends, and neighbors. Maintain your highest poised stance toward them all, neither indulging nor reacting to their deeds, words, or apparent provocations. Focus not on their external behaviors, but on your inner processing in response, for no one and nothing can truly hurt you or derail you from your path, unless you actively allow it ingress by granting it energy and reality within your consciousness. They can only inflict harm inasmuch as you decide to receive it as such, through the responses and storylines you construct about the interaction, instead of magnifying the perceived negativity from their side, remaining anchored in the understanding that you alone are the exclusive arbiter and narrator of the meaning ascribed to any external happening. In every interaction across your life's panorama, you must deeply internalize this substratal message. You, and you alone, are ultimately awareness itself, the immutable vantage overseeing all transient phenomena, including the petty judgments and disrespects temporarily issued your way, when others' flawed analyses lead them to besmirch you in any fashion. Do not lend them even a moment's residency in your supreme abode of being. It cannot elevate you in any way, and only serves to perturb your unified state. You are the solitary weaver of your destiny's needle point. How much longer will you delay in becoming worthy of the highest progress and the stately edicts of your own reasoned nature? You have been gifted the philosophical principles with which all great awakenings begin. What other master or external condition will you wait upon? before finally taking full custody over the correction and continual upliftment of your inner reality. You are no mere child of circumstance, but a fully actualized sovereign of will and choice. So, if you settle for persistent negligence, laziness, and perpetual postponement until your final breath, your life will hold no markings of honorable progress. You will simply have expired an unwitting, unrealized child, philosophically unborn. The path remains unwalked until you activate your most bounteous inheritance, the power to decide your state of consciousness in any and every instant. Let this day be the dawning of your pride's ascendance, where all perceived offenses and antagonisms are met with the supreme elevation of anchoring deeper into your clarified essence, unscathed and simply unwavering in your verity, no longer a sapling bending with each passing breeze, but an immovable oak solidifying behind your highest ideals. 8. Prameditatio Malorum, forging unshakable resilience. Anticipating obstacles fortifies our ability to overcome them, while keeping us anchored in the present moment, prepared for life's undulating terrains. It allows us to maintain calm clarity amidst even the most turbulent squalls, for we have pre-rehearsed and acclimatized our minds to such scenarios. An effective Stoic practice for dealing with the judgments and opinions of others is the exercise of Prameditatio Malorum, the anticipation of potential evils, discomforts, or adversities before they arise. This does not stem from a place of pessimism or fear-indulgence, but rather forges an unshakable emotional resilience. By reflecting in advance on criticisms, negative opinions, or judgments that may one day encroach, we steel ourselves with pre-formulated strategies and action plans to deal with them efficiently when, if they manifest, we develop a profound detachment from overly investing in or craving particular outcomes, recognizing that much lies beyond our perfect control. For we understand that challenges, obstacles, and negativity directed our way are inevitable concomitants of the human experience. Yet by being radically aware of and preparing for such eventualities in advance, we attain a supreme contentment unperturbed by ephemera, as profoundly inconsequential as the passing comments and petty judgments of others.